All right. So, hey, everybody, we got some people showing up. We're going to give it probably 2-3 minutes, let some folks roll in before we start diving into the content for tonight. We'll do some introductions. What I have BC Rogers of Ren and Ivy, Wade Shoemaker. TJ Mallet is supposed to be here, but he's having a little technical difficulties. He may pop in. We're not sure. He's in the sticks in Arkansas, if I'm not mistaken, but a few housekeeping items before we get into anything. If you are viewing this masterclass, your camera's off and you're muted, so you don't have to worry about that. You can use the chat box or the Q&A. If you have any questions, feel free to type it into those boxes and we'll try to cover it as we're going. Also, we're going to be doing a giveaway at the end of this webinar. It'll be posted in the chat, so keep an eye out for that. Other than that, welcome to the Southern Migration Report Masterclass. So we still got a little bit of time. I want to give folks time to show up. So let's do a little bit of introductions other than me just saying everyone's name. So BC, if you could kind of give us a little bit about yourself, what you do and what you've done so far this season, because I know you've done a little bit of hunting already.
Yeah, thanks, Lake. Appreciate you having me. I'm BC Rogers. My wife and I own a little company called Ren and Ivy. We make sporting and travel gear, leather and canvas, bags and accessories. And all of that started, the company sort of morphed into a lot more, but it all started because I couldn't find the duck hunting bag I wanted. And I didn't know you shouldn't go try to make it yourself. And so I did. That's a little bit about me.
Yeah.
And I used to have a more luscious beard like Wade.
Yeah.
This beard won't sell bags like
I think you need to be the mascot, and we just need to train a Wren to live in that thing.
Yeah, we can do it. It'll do it.
Oh yeah.
Wade, I'm sure a lot of people on this webinar probably know you already, but kind of give a little introduction to yourself as well.
Hey, Wade Shoemaker. I'm from Louisiana, just west of BC, actually. I'm currently in Texas, working. I'm a full-time photographer, videographer. So I take pictures and record people doing things that I have permission to record them doing. So that's the best way to put it, to clear your mind of any kind of clutter that's there or will pop up. That's pretty much it. I take pictures and point my camera at people.
Yeah, I hear that. Oh wait, I was just talking with TJ.
Yeah.
I think we may have him. The jury's still out.
I see his name. I guess there.
I can't see him or hear him yet.
Well, we're further along.
Ashton's standing over his shoulder going, push that.
There you go.
Hey!
Can you hear me or see me?
I can hear
see
you.
you guys.
I don't know. I can hear him a little bit.
DJ.
Yeah, I can hear you and see you guys. Can y'all see me?
No, we can just hear you and see your name.
Let's see. There should be. I don't know why you guys can't see me, unfortunately.
It's probably I wonder if it's a signal strength thing.
There it is. We got you.
Now he's got his mic muted.
Honestly,
Bottom left-hand corner, Teach.
There you go.
It was a little bit better when I couldn't see him, but that's all right.
Yeah. You don't get any better looking over technology, brother.
Still muted.
I can't tell if he's muted or if he's just having connection issues.
Can you hear me? I think it's unmuted. It might just be a connection issue, and I apologize if that's what it is on my end. Down here at Duck Camp, and we don't have the service down here can be not optimal. But I don't know if y'all can hear me. Can y'all hear me right now?
Yeah, what you can do, TJ, is I know we were joking about your video, but if you turn your video off, it may help the audio some because it's a little bit broken up.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna see if this works. If not, I'll start without me and I'll hop in.
Fair enough. Trying to get this worked out. I can't tell you, froze up again. TJ, did we lose you? Let's do this because we already have a good many people in here. If hopefully TJ can get it worked out. So diving into this Southern Migration Report, basically what we're trying to accomplish with this is kind of get just kind of a general view of what folks around the Southeast that have been out hunting and are going to be hunting here very soon. Because like I said, we've gone through the first part of the split already. Mississippi opens back up tomorrow. Arkansas opens back up tomorrow. Wade, does Louisiana open up tomorrow or is it later? Louisiana as well.
Tomorrow.
So let's do this and we'll go.
Nope, I'm wrong. Sorry. Next weekend.
Gotcha. So Wade, you've done some duck hunting down around home and in Texas and stuff already. Let's start with you. What have you seen already? The duck hunting you've done so far, have you been encouraged with the birds numbers that you've seen? Have you been on some good hunts? Just kind of fill me in on that.
Yeah, I'd say I'm pretty encouraged. We've had a lot of birds early this year. So like on a lake that we hunt, we had probably more birds than I've seen ever, like early October, which caused a problem for our opener because those birds were pretty well local by the time the opener rolled around. But as far as numbers, it's been great. We're consistently seeing birds at home, or we were, and we haven't had a bad hunt yet. We haven't had a banger, but it's been pretty consistent. And I think honestly, in Louisiana, that's really more than you can ask for over the last few years. So I've been happy with it. Was able to go to Arkansas for a couple of days and heard just nothing but bad reports. And then we got up there on that weekend and saw plenty, did okay. And then I'm in Texas now and very consistent. I mean, we've been here. I've had maybe 4 hunts. In the last couple of hunts, we shot around 30 geese both hunts, and bird numbers are fine. There are a lot of locals we need to push, but there's enough around that we can jump between groups and still shoot them every time we go to them. So
Gotcha.
Yeah, pretty encouraged.
Yeah. BC, same question. The hunting you've done around in Mississippi so far, are you encouraged with what you've seen? You feeling good about the rest of the season? What do you got?
Well, man, I wouldn't go as far as to say feeling good about the rest of the season because it changes every day. But
Sure.
But I would say the general report from Mississippi is it's dry and it's hot.
Mm-hmm.
But those guys that have had water for whatever reason have done fairly well. We all have our buddies that we report with every day during the season, and most of mine have done better than average. We've had 6 days of the season so far, and 2 of our hunts out of the 6 were great, and the other 4 were good. So that's a basic report. I think most people who have good habitat are seeing some birds.
Yeah. So I
I
know
don't know if you guys can see or hear me, but if it popped up right or not.
I can hear. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, great. I'm here then.
Cool.
I can see y'all just fine. So whenever I'll just let you ask me a question whenever you're ready, buddy.
Yeah, well, I'll just ask you the same question that I just asked Wade and BC. I said, everyone, Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, y'all have all done a little bit of hunting up to this point. And so what do you being in Arkansas? Well, hang on, let me back up. TJ, a lot of folks on here probably are familiar with you already, but kind of introduce yourself, where you are, what you do. And then if you could kind of go into what you've seen in the first part of the hunting you've done so far.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll even take it a step farther back from kind of, what Canada was looking like. But my name's TJ Mallett. I'm from originally Madison, Mississippi, and live over around the Stuttgart area. Own and operate black duck waterfowl. we start off in Canada, which had a great season. Still need a lot of water up there. There's more than last year. They still got room for improvement. But other than that, skipping ahead, we had a great first split. It was one of those things, if you have water, you had ducks, especially here in Arkansas, the early season. I mean, we have ducks show up. I mean, consistently our openers are really solid, and it was a kind of a repeat of the same, real mallard heavy, because it was dry around, and it was still, we actually had to break skim ice the second morning of the season. We've right now in the middle of that split that's 9-10 days long, so we've had a good bit of ducks stack up, just because the lack of pressure, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, which equates to lack of pressure, the better hunting. So we're going to have probably a pretty good first day, second day, and then looks like we're getting some cold weather, and it couldn't come at a better time along with this rain. So
Yeah, shoot, yeah. I mean, that's encouraging. Let's go to, so we had some like early submitted questions that the folks that pre-registered for this were able to submit. And so
awesome.
what I like to do is ask a question that's kind of in line with the topic, and then throw in a question that someone that's watching or listening asked. And so since all of y'all have outlined that y'all have been in on some good hunts already, they were asking about if there were any particular tactics, like, I mean, what was your setup like? Where were you hunting? What seemed to work well? You know how duck hunters are. You always want to know what was working, what made it work. So, I mean, if anything, just explain, your setup or where you were, what you're doing when you got in on, one of your better hunts so far.
I'll start it off. I mean, kind of with us, and what I tell a lot of people, this goes for a lot of hunting, but especially early in conditions like we have, where it's not a lot of water, so your ducks are going to be pretty concentrated. Is go in there and don't mess it up. For someone like me who used to blow a lot of calling contests and loves to blow a duck call, I probably did my Drake whistle and clucked a few times, and that's about it. So it's really about, I mean, the early part being where they want to be, because if you find some ducks that are happy in a comfy spot, it's just about getting there, and being hit, and not feeling like you have to blow your duck call type deal, and setting up a pretty lifelike spread, and that's if you're going after ducks, that are in there, and it's really not messing it up, type deal.
Gotcha. Wade, same question.
Yeah, kind of along the same lines. You just got to get where they want to be, or at least get under where they're headed to and where they're coming from. And if you do something like that, for us, we had a lot of birds in the area. So for us, it was like you kind of want to mimic what's going on, and whether that's like TJ mentioned, the Drake whistle or the type of calling that you're going to do. That's a key part of it. But for us, it was just like, make sure you've got enough decoys out to be visible, because we were hunting just under a large concentration of birds and trying to stop them from going to like a no hunt zone, because it was about the only water available. So yeah, we would throw out, we threw out 8 or 9 dozen decoys, and we had our motion on the water, and then we would just have to read the birds and how they reacted to what we were calling at, because we weren't hunting an X. We were trying to pull them down from where they were headed to, or where they were coming from, but for me, and it worked well, because birds would see us from a ways and just come straight down. It wasn't that we were doing really well at calling, it was just that we were visible enough for them to come check us out.
Gotcha. BC?
Yeah, I agree, Wade. I mean, the first 2 weekends in Mississippi have a split between them, so it's like opening weekend twice, and it makes you feel like you actually know how to duck hunt. So I had like you really. But one thing that did happen to me, you asked about, what happened on successful hunts. That opening day hunt where we did so well, I mean, we were certainly where we knew they had been, but it was cloudy. It was cooler, but not cold, and it was cloudy, and we didn't have a terrible amount of wind, but we got rain. during the hunting hours, it was raining. And I mean, this is anecdotal, but I have found that I would rather it be raining than cloudy. And particularly if there's not a ton of wind. If it rains, I don't know.
No, absolutely, for
I think
sure.
it agitates them and gets them moving around. And I was not in a place where you want it to be cloudy. I mean, we all want, 15-mile-an-hour north wind and blue skies, but but we smashed them, and I think it was because it was raining.
That's good.
Yeah, I think, I mean, like I said, everybody, if it could be bluebird and windy every time we went duck hunting, that's what everyone would want. But I like hearing those kind of things on what works, because I mean, a lot of folks that tune in and watch these webinars are the guys they have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to duck hunt. And so whatever weather they got. And so I like, when folks like y'all that are out there and doing it and have done it a lot, have find stuff that, maybe find things that worked, even when it's not the most ideal conditions. That's how we can, bring value to the folks that are watching this. And so I like that kind of stuff. Quick question, another one that was submitted, because y'all talked about decoys. And I imagine, there's always tactic stuff that gets brought into these kind of master classes, but what kind of value do you put on, this is kind of a two-parter of a question, and y'all can all answer in whatever order you want. What kind of value do you put on motion in your decoys, and do y'all use like a spinner, like a Mojo type decoy? And if so, how often?
If we're gonna keep it the same order, I'll start off. I put a ton, just a ton of value into what I call motion in the ocean in your decoy spread. There's some, whether it be a jerk cord, no matter you're in the timber, the woods, rice field. One thing, a tool that I found helpful, and I mean, it's not a company like I promote or anything, but is, for example, the Higdon pulsators. They throw a lot of water. It kind of frees up a hand. You can, get four, put them on the corners. Motion in the decoy spread does a couple things. One, it makes your spread so lifelike. And having flown a drone over birds, they're making so many ripples, but also how muddy the water is. That's one thing you really want to take into consideration, because those ducks, that's the first thing I see when I'm flying over is that muddied up water. So really get that. But motion in the spread is key, but also you got to think about it like a duck call. If those birds are right on top of you, don't pull that cord. Do it on the swings when they're, when you're getting on that duck call, that's when you kind of want to get motion a little bit. If you're doing a jerk cord type deal. Mojo, I'm not a big, I don't, because we're hunting mallards a lot, and sometimes, most times in the woods or close by. If I do use them, what I'll do is put them off to the side. I never, even if I'm in, which I don't really use them in a field either, but I think it's real important to have it next to a bush or under a limb, to where those ducks are getting just flashes when they make those passes of wings beaten. So that's kind of my stance on motion and Mojos.
So you've got them where they're just basically catching glimpses of movement. They're not just out in the wide open, just sitting there spinning.
That's right. That's right. Like I'll have it across the hole, and specifically like in between two trees, to where those ducks, they're not just seeing one spinning decoy in the middle of the hole. It's off to the side to where it looks like is a duck got up and just flapped its wings, and they catch that that motion, just because they've seen them for 20 years now. And I think position them off to the side like that, where they don't have a clear view of that mojo, is essential.
Right.
I agree with you, TJ. And I like to use mojos. To start with mojos, I like to use mojos at times, but I find myself picking them up most hunts. I think they really do well right at daylight. And if you're in a place where you can use them and they work for the first 30 minutes, use them. I do like hiding them, like TJ was saying. I saw somebody ask about the pulsators with we call them squirt butts. I use 7 of those.
Yeah, they're
I
awesome. They are
I
awesome.
find that those don't flare ducks like your jerk string does. Like TJ was saying, and I agree with you completely. Like I usually pull the jerk string when I think the ducks aren't looking at me, and so when they turn back, then they're seeing those ripples of the jerk string swimming back more naturally, or the ripples coming off of it. But I mean, of course, now that I say this, it's going to happen tomorrow, but I have not seen ducks flaring on those squirt butts. But maybe they do. As soon as I think something's not going to flare them, it will.
When we were at Cottonmouth on the river, we use those pulsators all the time. And like you said, who knows? I want to knock on wood right after I say it, but we never had issues with those flaring a duck.
Yeah, and you can spread that motion out instead of just a straight line. That's something that maybe doesn't look as natural when you've got, one here, one over there. It kind of also moves 4 or 5 decoys, 4 or 5 decoys, 4 or 5 decoys, to where I think it just gives off such a natural, that it doesn't. Yes, it's just enough, but not too much.
And I think we'd all say, like, I'd rather the wind just be blowing the decoys, but it's not always blowing the decoys. And those pulsators, the reason why I use 7 of them is because I got them spaced out through my decoys, and those ripples start bouncing off the decoys. I like to say intersecting V's. Like like TJ was talking about. Yeah, you love that one, right? That I remember us talking about that before. But that if you fly a drone over a bunch of ducks, all you see is intersecting lines of where they're swimming by each other. And so the more you can't perfectly recreate that with circles, but it does still make all those crossing lines. And I think more crossing lines, more motion in the ocean, like TJ said, I think that better, as long as it's not. Also on the spinning wings, I find, again, I mean, I'm not trying to say that I know, it's just my observation has been they work better on clear days than cloudy days.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is. I think ducks can pick things out on a cloudy day that they can't pick out on a sunny day.
For sure.
And I think that's not it's close, but it's not perfect. And on a sunny day, it's close enough. Wade, what's your take on motion?
I'm a bigger fan of water motion than air motion. So like, you put it on the water, you're going to get a lot better of a reaction. I do use spinners, but I do also put them. There's very few days I put them in the hole. Most of the days I put them to the side. And as far as putting them around bushes or around trees, I try to put them on the opposite side. If the duck's approaching this way, I like to have the spinner on the opposite side of the tree so it can't see it as it approaches. That way, when it's on its edges and turning, it does get that flash. And like you brought up a bush, we'll put it in a bush. If we can fit it in there without breaking something, we'll put it in the bush just for that reason. So yeah, I do use them, but I'm very intentional with where I put them and how I put them. And then when it comes to the water motion, obviously a jerk rig is the #1 tool. The agitators I'll use 2 or 3, in the spread, but what I've used this year more than anything, and I think it's worked, is a swimmer decoy. Lucky Duck come out with a swimmer decoy that's got the same motor on it as your spitter, as you call it, or whatever, your butt squirter or whatever. There's other names that it's called, but we won't say that here. But it's got the same exact motor, but except it's on a floating decoy, and the actual valve that sticks out of it has kind of like an S curve in it. So it'll swim around, looks just like a real decoy. I've got drone footage of it, and I've got a half dozen of them that I put in the spread. And man, I'm going to tell you, it changes things. When you talk about wanting motion in the water that's not going to scare a duck off, they're literally swimming on top of the water and they go different directions. So when you put them in those intersecting V's or crossways, like you talked about, BC, they're incredibly realistic. And I think that helps us a lot. But yeah, in short, any motion I can put on the water, I'm for it. As long as it's not too aggressive and as long as they're not looking at it when I make it happen. And as far as spinning wing decoys, use them, make sure they see it when they're turning, and make sure it's not too much where it scares them when they're coming at you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
and one thing before the next question, sorry, like just to
Sure.
add to it, just that these guys, bring up good points that spark things, and my head is keeping up with. So, you might be able to right now get away with using, and especially the first week of Mojo a little bit more is with the amount of leaves on the trees, especially if you're hunting and where around woods. That is a huge thing. And I'm sure we'll talk about concealment, but whether it be concealment or decoys, especially with a Mojo and motion as well, is paying attention to how much leaves are falling off the trees too. And these remotes with the Mojos, a lot of people, not everybody's able to hunt just a spot with straight mallards, but most of them have remotes now. So if you have mallards working, flip them off, and if you see a bunch of teal, pop them on. So kind of different ways to go.
That's
Mhm.
good.
That is good. Yeah, this info is appreciated by me and everyone on here, I'm sure. I do want to get to, because as you can imagine, we won't run out of tactic questions. We got piles of those that people submitted, but what I'm putting on the priority list, because of it being a migration report webinar, this being so we'll go on with this question first. The question is, do you think the drought, the low Mississippi River, do you think that is having, what kind of effect, if any, do you think that's having on the ducks, or will have on the ducks? Any ideas?
I think that's why we had so many ducks local. Like I said, early October, we had more ducks on the lake than we'd ever had. Like that time of year, I think low water is more than likely the cause of that, because they started to roll out and they had nowhere to roll to, so they kept going until they did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. That it definitely concentrated the ducks. If you had water, you were going to have ducks. And and this is also, if you have a lease and you had water and you didn't have ducks opening day, it might be time to look for a new spot.
You got garfield, pal.
It was one of the, that's just the deal. It was cold, and that's that. It being low, and being that, but also one thing that helping a lot, the woods needed some time with water off it, and especially not just this time of year, but in the spring too. So we're catching up on the water, but I think it was good to have some water off the woods for a while also. But it definitely did, like Wade said, impact the hunting. If you had water, you probably had ducks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as you could imagine, TJ, there was we had a couple questions submitted surrounded. I'm not as educated on this as I should be, but I know that there were some pretty significant rule changes on some of the public ground up around there in Arkansas, was there not? About like timing and stuff, and due to the water on the trees that left on the trees for a long time and all that.
That's right. Yeah, they've each year there's a different when they'll lift the gates or put in the gates structures to hold water, but really it kind of determines just the amount of rainfall once it gets out of its banks. There's going to be certain amount of water in the woods, whether it be in any of the WMAs or off the river. They can only control it to an extent, but that is one thing, having hunted the woods for a long time and seeing the health, or the lack thereof, of the timber in the woods, from the White River Refuge to any of the WMAs, that they could definitely take a break without having water on them, and sometimes either letting Mother Nature kind of naturally flood it up, or them holding off putting on water, because we definitely want our grandkids to have a place to go hunt the green timber and stuff like that. So it's sometimes it stings at the moment, but it's in the long run, it kind of, I think, is balances out, because we had some, they're there for 4 or 5 years, some really wet springs and winters. So but it's going to catch back up. There's rain in the forecast, and it's been raining, so I think we'll be in good shape.
Gotcha. Well, thanks for the input on that. So this is like one of the probably the most common question, and I would like all three of y'all to weigh in on this one. I'm very aware how like loaded of a question this is, and there's a lot of nuance around it. But as you can imagine, you ask, I mean, when you have a title like a Southern Migration Report, the topic that gets brought up a lot is we don't have mallards like we used to. You hear things like the flyway is shifted, and you hear a lot of what you hear most of is a lot of like doom and gloom, So again, I'm not asking y'all to solve this problem or say exactly what's going on, but again, the three of y'all are in very key places across the Southeast in the Mississippi Flyway. So just kind of weigh in, give your opinion on, because again, we did have a lot of questions around that topic. The
guy from Louisiana has to go first.
Louisiana, you first.
That's fine. No, and it's not true. Like we don't have the mallards we used to have. I think there's a lot of key like points that make this a thing, not just one, right? And the question is like why, or the question is like what to do?
Why?
Why? I think
most asking.
Several reasons. One, I think is, I think farming products is a hot topic, and I think part of that it doesn't stop, but it might slow. And I don't think it's that there's a couple people doing it. I think it's now that just about every single place that has a duck that flies over it, somebody's farming products or whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. Even down to Louisiana. I mean, I'm not saying it's just above us. I think it's just like now there's way more food sources, but I think the biggest thing, and I could be wrong because I'm pretty green behind the ears compared to the years that's here, but I think it's a lot. If you look at cold fronts that we get over the last 5 to 10 years, there's been maybe 2 or 3 that I remember that have really made an impact straight north to south. Everything's from the Northwest or whatever, but nothing is just straight down anymore. A couple of years ago, we had one in February, and it was 4 inches of snow and ice on our roads in Louisiana. And there were ducks in places that I'd never seen ducks before since I started duck hunting. So it's not that the ducks aren't alive anymore. It's not that we don't have the population. I think it's just we don't have the weather to push them down like we used to, because they have way more options than they used to. And then on the other side of that, and I look at my state as a key or as somebody to really point at, it's just like the biggest complaint is duck numbers and mallards. And you look around, and where there used to be rice and corn there and soybeans, there's now like cotton and sugarcane and concrete, so it's like if I'm hanging out trying to go find food and that restaurant is either leveled or not open for the 3 times I try to go, which 3 years in duck world, like I'm not going back, so I'm going to stop a little bit shorter where I know there's food and I know there's somewhere to hang out, and that just keeps growing and growing and growing. You've got saltwater intrusion on the coast, no more duck potatoes like there used to be, and all this other stuff. It's a lot of things, man. I don't think there's one thing you can point a finger at. I mean, anybody can pour a bag of corn out and feed an animal, no matter what that animal is. It doesn't mean it's going to stop them from going anywhere. You've got to have weather to push them down, weather and snow to cover their food up, and ice to freeze their water up. I mean, it's a lot of things. So
yeah. I think that's the one thing we probably all could agree on. I mean, and that's the pretty common in any like problem or issue you see pop up in wildlife. There's never going to be one outstanding thing that you can point to and go, that's it. That's what caused it. It's always death by 1,000 cuts, my opinion. BC, TJ, anything on that?
I think having spent a lot of time in Mississippi and Arkansas, and one of the biggest things for Mississippi, the farming practices that have changed there over the last 20 or 30 years. Used to the Delta, it looked like where I am now, kind of like the Grand Prairie, there'd be a lot of waste grain of rice and corn and stubble left over. Well, all that stuff is harvested, and you can't blame the farmer. He's making a living. But, right now the Delta looks like a big mud flat. And so when there's not that waste grain, which when people, plant for ducks in Mississippi, that's really just kind of a thimble drop in the grand scheme of like right now, all the sheet water that's across all the rice fields and bean fields around here that aren't just, turned over into mud. There's birds scattered out everywhere. And BC can probably attest, he, used to see that all the time driving around the roads in the Delta, and it's just, not like that anymore. And you too, like, I mean, the crops are turned over so fast. So I think for Mississippi, there's been so many generations of ducks, and that term phallopatry, which ducks have a very, very high rate of returning to the same area. There's been literally generations of mallards and waterfowl that haven't even made it to the Mississippi Delta, and they don't even know it exists. So I think between, I've never heard one old timer say, damn, it sure is a lot colder now than it used to be. No, so I mean, I think between, like we were talking about, the fronts that we don't get, and with the farming practices having getting more and more advanced, that they take more and more, more efficient with the farming, that's less, duck energy days out there for those ducks to get down here. So one of those things added together kind of equals ducks, it taking more to move a duck as well. So when we do get those fronts, I'm not sure it moves as many ducks, especially once it turns to January. Those studies show that the fronts don't move as many ducks as they do right now or earlier in the year even.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. A couple things, like, most pieces of dirt in Mississippi are land leveled now. The water gets off of them. There's not that pothole effect that was when we were all younger. So you don't have that waste grain, and you don't have water sitting there. I mean, it looks like a pool table all through the Delta right now. And that's great for the farmer. But the other thing is when I was in college 25 years ago, we would look at Memphis and say, it's frozen solid in 3 days, it's frozen solid, and it just snowed on top of it just north of Memphis. Now that's at Kansas City. So you've got a huge area of land that ducks are only going to go as far south as they have to. And the amount of ducks is up. I know the last couple of years it's down, but over my hunting career, it's up. And so there's more ducks, and we're taking better care of them. So we also have to not look at our 100 acres or 1,000 acres that we watch, or 10,000 acres that we watch, or the county that we watch. And we have to say, what's good for ducks? And what's good for ducks is having people farming for ducks all the way down the flyway. And that may mean that not as many ducks end up at your 100 acres, but it does mean that some ducks will come to your 100 acres when your kids have your 100 acres. So it's really important that we look globally and not locally when it comes to taking care of this animal that we love so much. But they're only going to fly as far south as they have to, and there's a lot more people trying to take care of them, and that's a good thing overall.
I like how you said take care of them, like, because they really are. It is taking care of them. Like,
man, like we don't spend the kind of money that we all spend to plant duck food and put water on that duck food to kill them. I mean, that's not why we do it. We do it so they have a place to eat in February.
That's good.
Yeah, I like that perspective a lot, especially, I mean, because y'all are very well plugged into the narratives that get tossed around, and it's a lot of it is like very doom and gloom. So I appreciate all three of those perspectives. The last topic I want to be sure to hit on, and we can kind of end on this one, relating to migration reports, that kind of led into a lot of questions asking about scouting. Like I said, I mean, there's really, like I said, pretty much, Mississippi and Arkansas both open back up tomorrow, but there's still, scouting to be done throughout the season. Yes, a lot to be happy for about that. So even if let's do this two different ways. Let's go from, there's a lot of folks that are talking about places that they haven't hunted before, they're not super familiar with, and they're just talking about like general, they're like, what do I look for? So people are saying I need to scout. Okay, great. What does that mean? And then let's take that. After that, let's go to like spots that, like, TJ, I know you hunt spots year after year. Same can be said for Wade in BC. What are y'all doing if some similar things or different things to scout spots or to stay kind of keep your finger on the pulse of what the ducks are doing in the areas that you're hunting?
If to touch on the first part of your question, if you're looking at a new area, I mean, the main thing you're going to look for is water. And once you find that, try to get away from folks, chase the water line wherever you are. Ducks are always, more often than not, they want to find that new water. It's like a refresh in that salad bar. So wherever that new water is and that water line is, that's probably where you're going to find ducks. And a lot of times that'll be past where people are. So that's one thing if you're looking for a general question over a new general area. But mine for hunting spots that we've got, say, X amount of holes and different places is keeping the pressure at a minimum when it comes to scouting for them, and also hunting it. You got to see farther than just past your nose. When it comes to, when you find birds, line them up for when it's going to be the best conditions. But really just don't be as less invasive as possible. It always kind of drives me, or just blows my mind when I see people just, driving through ducks, kicking them out. I mean, the less one thing I've actually really utilized scouting is a drone. I can get way up high, get a bird's eye view, see exactly where they are, and not have to scare one single bird off. So I would say the less invasive you can be, and the less pressure you can put on them, scouting and go in there and leave them like you found them, the odds are going to be stacked in your favor significantly.
Wade?
Scouting, I have to agree with him. It's water's your main thing. If you're in the South, there's no dry feeding down here. So look for water. I think if it's somewhere you've never been, look for agriculture. There's ag around the water, then that's where you want to be. Whether it's private ground around public or whatever, that's what you want, because ag around here is flooded ag for the most part. So they're going to be in there trying to eat something. And really, I mean, TJ really hit everything on the nose. You follow that new water because it's fresh for them, and that's going to bring up different little bugs, snails, or whatever's in the dirt that they can eat. So they're going to go after that. I don't really have a whole lot to add to that. That's good, except as far as certain public ground, don't do the drone thing. You can get in trouble with that, but that is the best scouting tool that is, unless you own an airplane, then that's a win. So I don't have much else to add to that. I think you knocked everything out that I would have had to add, and we pretty well hunt the same type of scenarios. So that's probably explains that, but that was good.
I'll add one thing. I agree that TJ kind of covered it. One thing that I'll add that you don't want to go run your ducks out to scout them. And most of the time, wherever those ducks are, well, it just depends on the habitat. I hunt timber a whole lot, and they're not going to sleep in there. Mm-hmm. So if you can find a way to see the top of those trees from a couple miles off with a pair of binoculars, and the woods well enough, then you can figure out what hole those ducks were in when they got up at night. And I mean, I'd say most of our scouting is we got lucky and jumped some ducks up, or we set way back with binoculars and watched where they had piled up that day, and they're probably going to go back there the next morning. That's particularly true with gadwalls, and I love gadwalls, and the heck with all y'all who don't.
Ain't gonna hear hating on the gadwall here. And one thing I'll add to that too is the time that you do scout. A lot of places in different spots, different scenarios, the ducks are going to be there at a different time. For example, when I was in college hunting this area, ducks were coming. It wasn't until about 10:30, 10 o'clock till birds started hitting this area, and where they were low from, it took them a while to get there. So if you're seeing feathers on the water, maybe they're not roosting there. They just might be, they might not be getting there till 9 o'clock. So, timing of when you go look for these birds is also, if there's birds there, figure out what time they're using it.
I forgot to tell you on my feather on the water thing. This is a total wives' tale, but I believe it all the way. TJ smiling, he knows exactly what I'm about to say. First duck you kill, you drop feathers on the water. And I'm convinced that the feathers in the decoy spread floating around on top of the water looks real to them. Prove me wrong. Put the table with the sign in front of
you and I haven't had many mad ones together, bud, so I believe it.
Look over.
I'm convinced.
Look over, and BC's over there in the hole plucking a duck.
100%.
He brings the feather bucket to the hole and just dumps it out.
And then I stand there for 30 minutes. Look at those feathers moving. Look at those feathers moving.
Yeah. Look at the
That's funny.
Well, let's do this. One, guys, thank you for all of your time. I appreciate all the input and the insight. Go around and make sure, because the three of y'all, and I'm not just blowing smoke, when it comes to like waterfowl content, y'all are among the top people I like to follow on social media, because you always have some stuff going on. So while the giveaway link for the onX hats are being posted in the chat, just go around and order and tell everyone where they can find y'all if they want to follow y'all and keep up with y'all and everything.
Yeah, I'll start off. I'm just on Instagram at TJ_Mallet. And you can also find our website, blackduckwaterfowl.com.
Wade?
I'm mostly on Instagram, and it's at Wade Shoemaker.
You know,
I'm there, do most everything there.
Gotcha. BC?
Yeah, so Wren like the bird, Ivy like the plant, wrenandivy.com, and Wren_Ivy on Instagram. But you can Google Wren and Ivy sporting and travel gear, and you'll see, I mean, YouTube, whatever. Actually, we just put up a new YouTube video today.
Sweet.
Very cool.
Sweet. All right. Well,
We've enjoyed seeing your cross-country tour with Knox, and going out and chasing some ducks and some geese and some upland. That's been great, man.
yeah, man, it's been a lot of fun. And it is funny, like the fact that I'm part of a Southern Migration Masterclass while I'm sitting in South Dakota. So it's a little ironic, but
hey, no, you got to get down here for us. So you're doing the Lord's work.
Well, yeah, guys, we're gonna wrap it up here. Thank y'all for tuning in. Again, the giveaway link is in the chat right now. Be sure to hit that up. BC, Wade, TJ, thank y'all so much for coming on, and we're gonna wrap this up. Oh, last thing, if there's anything that y'all want to hear again, or they hit on that y'all liked in this webinar, don't fret. All these webinars, along with the past master classes, will be posted to the onX YouTube channel tomorrow. So be sure to check that out, and we'll see y'all next time. Thanks, guys.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, guys.